Okay, welcome to episode 136, the Never Iron Anything Comics Review podcast. Christmas is almost upon us, so who better to celebrate the season than our old buddy, Alan Henderson. How you doing, dude?
Bah, humbug.
You got a nice beard coming on, my friend. You can't say that.
Right, I'm doing my Santa look. So
yeah.
I've got the stomach to go for it as well, so that's the thing. Yeah.
Me too. Now, I used the way we came to today's episode is you suggested a Christmas book, and I had literally just received in the post a present from Peter Watson at the Earth 2 podcast. He sent me this comic, and I went, oh bloody hell, I've got this right next to me. What do you think? And we sort of agreed on that. Now, I think you ordered it, didn't you? Did you?
Yeah. I just it's one of these ones where I could have read it on the app.
Yeah,
I could have dug out the omnibus of holding the Brave and Bold that I have.
Yeah.
But no, I thought I'll get an actual copy of it just because it was one of the ones I was missing from that collection. I think I'll get it away. So from the Brave and Bold, and
cool.
The Brave and Bold was always the title if you were doing the back issue diving in the back issue bins and you couldn't find the Batman issues that you wanted, or you couldn't afford the Batman issues that you wanted, you would go, well, I'll pick up a Brave and Bold. So I've got a reasonable collection of Brave and Bold back issues, but this was one that happened to escape me.
Yeah, me too, actually. I think I've got most of the team up issues. But there's certainly some Brave and Bolds that are well sought after, aren't there? We'll talk about that in a bit. Did you want to say what issue we're talking about, dude?
So we are talking about issue number 148 from so has a cover date of March 1979, which means it's actually the December 1979 book.
78.
78.
Yeah.
Yeah, December 78 from March 79.
I had a conversation with someone about this the other day. Now, I've heard differing stories why they do this. One was so it stayed on the rack longer, and people thought they were getting something new. And somebody else told me that there was just sort of some slippage where they pushed more books out. Do you know which is the truth around that?
So, combination of both.
Right.
Further made more complicated as well. Not at this time, but once we had comic book stores set up, the date that the comic book shops were getting it versus when it actually landed on newsstand was different. So, and it was always dated for the newsstand date. So that would come sometime after this.
Yeah.
But it used to be the case of if you were getting the books into the comic shops, it was almost that difference as well about saying what was coming over by airmail and what was coming over by boat.
Because our newsagent stuff was late, wasn't it? We used to get a couple of months late, didn't we?
Yeah, so it'd be a couple of months, and that's essentially because it came over by boat versus being actually delivered to comic book shops by freight.
So kids don't know how well they got it these days, do they? They don't know how well they're doing.
Absolutely, yeah. And all you were discussing this recently on ECP. Yeah, and. So it's a combination of that, it was generally the date that would be taken off the newsstand as well. So if this was the December book, it would have been on the shops, for December. Kids would be able to buy it at that point, and they would look to when do we take this off? Well, you take it off at the end of March. That's at least that's the sort of thought process that I always understood. I could be entirely wrong, but
it seems very sensible.
Makes some sort of sense.
From a sort of sales point of view, that sounds like a good idea. Yeah, and also to confuse things slightly more, this was the first year that for many years that Brave and the Bold wasn't bi-monthly, so this was now a monthly book. I think 77 it was still bi-monthly, interestingly. Did you want to talk about what issue it is, dude?
So 148, it's Batman and Plastic Man. The night the mob stole Xmas or Christmas or Christmas, depending on your
I reckon they called it Xmas because they couldn't fit it in the wreath thing there, could they? Yeah.
I was going to say there's a number of the speech bubbles where they're going, thank God we're calling it Xmas.
Yeah. Well, having written Christmas down quite a lot in my notes, I'm not a big fan of the use of Xmas, but I've even given in and just started writing it. I agree.
Well, so why is it Xmas? And that's because it's actually the Greek letter chi in capital looks like a big X.
Right.
So it's actually, and Kai is in Greek would lead you to Christ as the
okay.
as the shrine. So it is.
We're bringing the knowledge this week, my friend. Yeah.
That's what it is. So yeah, there you go.
So who was the creative team on it?
So the creative team is the regular writer for the Brave and Bold, who was Bob Haney, and then it's got joint artist duties with Joe Staton doing some of the work, and the again regular Brave and Bold artist Jim Aparo. And I think you can pick and choose as to what pages are done by who.
Yeah, I was thinking that. I mean, page 1 is just so classic Aparo to me. It just
definitely,
yeah.
You know, anywhere that you see Gordon, you're going.
Yeah, you really do, don't you?
Aparo, and then maybe page 3's Joe Staton. You know, maybe I don't know. It's more.
Yeah, I get you on that, man. Yeah, totally. Yeah, especially the last panel. Yeah.
Yeah, and certainly when you move to something like page 13 is 100% Joe Staton. Anyway,
yeah.
You know, you can pick and choose through it as to who does what.
It's the old Aparo classic karate chop there I see as well. You know. Yeah, I get you. Cool.
Yeah. So it's them. The basis of the stories is basically it's a weird start to the story, right? Because it's all about Batman looking after the man and trying to stop a tax dodge that's taking place on selling illegal cigarettes.
I kind of feel like Bob Haney's been watching too many Untouchables episodes or something. You know, it sort of stinks of being like a story from the 20s or 30s. This one, doesn't it? Really,
and you know, but it's also it's a stop a tax dodge of people who are selling untaxed cigarettes, which led to a word that I had never heard of before.
Oh yes, me too. Go on though. Yeah,
butt legging.
Yeah, I presumed it had something to do with butts, but you know, as we probably both did. But yeah, it's like the butt leg war.
Like, you know, yeah, butt legging. Anyway, so it's to do
surely that's bootlegging. Surely they just mean is butt legging the special term they have for it on?
Well, I presume it was cigarette butts.
Oh right, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So no, I've just assumed it was a cigarette butt, therefore it becomes butt legging rather than bootlegging.
yeah. Okay, man. Sorry, I interrupted you.
That was my thought process. Anyway. So it starts off with that, but those mobsters who are butt legging end up stealing all of the Christmas decorations from the town centre of Gotham, and the mayor is so upset that you're going to have to cancel Christmas for Gotham, and fun ensues as the Batman and Plastic Man hunt down the stolen Christmas decorations and manage to save the day and bring them back to Gotham in time to save Christmas.
Perfection couldn't be more Christmassy than that, could it? Pete Watson has scored a blinder there with that one. Yeah, just in time for Christmas.
Awful story, right?
I sort of lost track of it a bit and just sort of enjoyed the interactions between Batman and
So, and to be fair, a lot of the Brave and the Bold was like this.
Yeah,
where the writing is just let's make it happen, right? And then just enjoy yourselves.
Yeah.
And I think there's we need to say that that's an important thing about Brave and the Bold. It's just, this is just for fun.
Throwing two wacky characters together and seeing how they bounce off each other. Yeah, I know. This isn't the worst of them all. There's some worst cases, isn't there? You know.
Oh no. Yeah. So none of the Brave and Bold is continuity, and God no, and nor should it be.
Which I kind of think that allegedly Bob Haney was quite pleased about. He wasn't a big continuity hound, was he? From what I can read.
And I think it's good to always have a book where you can just do that, because all the stories were one and done, and it's just a bit of fun.
Well, let's rewind a bit because we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves. I've got a questions for you. So, are you a big fan of Christmas? As you probably will know, I'm a massive fan of Christmas. Love Christmas. Yeah. What about you? I'm
so with it. Right, I'm not anti-Christmas, but nor am I. We've got 2 Christmas trees up in the house.
Right, already?
Just because that's the way it goes. One of which is festooned with comic-related ornaments hanging from it.
Yes, now you put that on the Slack.
I posted a number of the pictures of it.
Yeah, you put that up, and I haven't replied to that yet because I don't. I'm quite into Christmas, but I insist we put our Christmas tree up on Christmas Eve. It's kind of like a family tradition.
Fair enough.
So I will be taking the pictures of the the comic ornaments then and send them to you. But yeah, I was good to see, man. You had a nice. What was it? You had a Batman theme one, didn't you? What was it you had?
So I've got a number of Batman ones. I've got a nice Superman animated one.
Oh, cool.
That came from the Warner Brothers store back in the day. I've got some cheap and nasty things that have been given to me by my family who think, "Oh, you like this?" And you're like, going, "Yeah, but there's a reason I've not bought that in the past." We do that, but I'm not somebody who puts lights on the outside of the house. And
God, no, those sort of people are weird. I think they're probably sex terrorists. Those sort of people.
and well, the house opposite us, or one of the houses opposite us, we refer to as the Barrowlands.
Right, which is the gig venue, isn't it, in Glasgow?
Which, because and you can know a big gig venue with lots of flashing lights on the outside, and they've got the big stars and everything like the Barrowlands has. So anybody from the Scottish listening contingent that knows what the Barrowlands looks like, that's what my neighbour looks like during December.
Some kind of weird carny folk. Yeah.
So but I'm from a very small family, therefore Christmas has never been that big a thing. And as life has gone on, and I know it's one of your next questions.
Yeah.
I am awful to buy presents for.
Well, I bought you a present for your birthday, and it took me a long time to find something that I thought he's probably not got this.
Well, so there's a combination. Like, one is that if I see something I want, I'm in the fortunate position where normally I can go buy it.
Yeah.
And if I can't afford it, then anyone who's buying it probably shouldn't afford it either. Or I've made the assessment going, that's not really worth the money.
Yeah.
Which does make it really difficult. So I'm really difficult to buy for from that. Which does mean that often extended family members will buy me something and go, "You'll like this."
Yeah, socks with Batman on or something like that. Yeah.
I think the best ever was a Batmobile soap dish.
Oh, that sounds right.
From it'll be the Batman and Robin era. movie memorabilia. So anyway,
I'll take that back. That sounds horrible.
But you're like going, geez, thanks. You found a soap dish in the shape of a Batmobile. Anyway,
one of the best Batman toiletry products I ever got was a Batman the Animated Series bubble bath. It's shaped.
With the screwed half head. Yes.
Yeah, and it's massive. It's like not having a nice statue. I just empty I'm not a big user of bubble baths. Might surprise you, but I just empty the bubble bath out and use it as a statue. It's fucking lovely. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I have that. I have that in a box somewhere. And they did a bunch of bubble baths in that ilk that
cool.
where mainly it was heads that were just stuck on the top of bottles and stuff.
Yeah,
from the Batman animated series that were cool from that sort of side.
Do you
so that makes buying for me difficult at Christmas.
Yeah. Do you have like any traditions? Do you sit down and think, right, I'm going to read this run of comics, or I'm going to revisit this book, or anything like that? Do you have something ready to go? Because I know you're a busy man at work and everything, and it's a little bit of a rest for you, a couple of days with your feet up. Anything like that?
So no, I'm more inclined to say, right, let's use this opportunity to get through something in the unread pile.
Cool.
So it's not. I will take a tradition. So yes, the tradition might be, even if I'm at work, it's going to be a little bit quieter. So I'll probably have one of the books at the side of the desk where I can go. I can dip in and out of this and get myself ahead of something that's in the unread pile to get through. But I don't revisit specifically at Christmas, going, oh, that's the story I must revisit or go back through. I'm terrible for things like that. I really am. It's not that I am by humbug. It's just that I'm just like, it's just another period of the year.
Mind you, those books sit there and guilt you, don't they? They weigh heavily on my guilt, seeing all those unread comics. And I know what you mean. Sometimes just to get through it, there's a slight sense of relief that you've not wasted your money. Definitely.
Or it's ones where you've gone, I'm looking forward to do that. I must find the time to actually get through that as a whole and just this me time type thing.
Now, for those people who don't know about The Brave and the Bold was initially it's quite a standout book, a bit like Adventure Comics, maybe Showcase as well. It's one of those books that changed what it was about occasionally, and eventually fell into being this sort of Batman team-up book. I mean, when you think about it, I think the Teen Titans premiered in there. They had Hawkman in there, Suicide Squad, Justice League, Strange Sports, if you remember that. It jumped about. And then in the 70s, it became, late 60s, I think, early 70s, it became a Batman team-up book, didn't it? I think it's the way it is. Yeah, I mean, it's been running since 55.
Yeah.
So this one... Go on, mate. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, and it's quite odd that it did that, because it became the third Batman book.
Yeah.
And then there were other team-up books across both DC and Marvel that started around the same time.
Yeah.
Also doing team-ups, but with other characters.
Yeah. So we had a little chat about this before we started, but I kind of... The four biggies for me, you had Brave and the Bold, you had DC Comics Presents, which was to me, the Superman version of this.
Yeah.
You had Marvel 2-in-1, which was The Thing and a character. And you had Marvel Team-Up, which was started as a sort of the Human Torch and Spider-Man, and then devolved into Spider-Man teaming up with other people, mostly.
Yeah.
Were you... I mean, I think you said it there initially, didn't you? That it was kind of like you'd pick up Brave and the Bold if there was no other Batman books there. Is that right?
Yeah. No, or certainly that's me going backwards, picking them up as back issues.
Oh, okay.
Where,
right.
It was good. Brave and the Bold finished in 1983.
Right.
I wasn't, or I'm not saying I didn't read the Brave and the Bold in that period while as a kid, but it would have been literally just if that happened to be the thing in the newsagent, and I was, or going on holiday type thing, and it was an ideal thing for that, I think, for grabbing it. But I didn't, that wasn't really during my comic collecting phase. That came from about 1988, 89 onwards. So very much it would be you pick up the Brave and Bold as the if you're filling in gaps or trying to just say, I really like the Phantom Stranger, so let's get the Phantom Stranger issue or stuff like that, which made for some interesting stuff. And again, because it was standalone, it was great from that ability to go, right, I can just get the one issue and just enjoy it.
Yeah.
I do think there's a big place for these team-up books.
That's where I was going with that, man. That's interesting, because to me, as a kid, and I was buying all four of them, I would buy, because I didn't have unending money as a kid, I would buy the ones that looked interesting, had an artist I liked, or had a character that, Wood God or someone, a character I'd never seen before. Oh, who's that? I'm going to get that comic. It's a bit like that. And it was a way to introduce other characters. Now, these four titles have all gone. They have tried to resurrect Marvel Team Up on occasion. It's not worked. And to me, the reason being is these characters all cross over with each other all the time anyway now. I mean, Superman's in Batman this week, isn't he, and stuff, he comes and helps him with that robot Batman thing that's going on. So you see it quite a lot, but we didn't see it as much.
There's four titles, actually. There's a fifth title. Okay. The fifth title is World's Finest.
Of course. Yeah. No, that's a good point.
But so, but here's the thing. We say these books have gone away, and I very much see the team-up books as being the books that people who are not comic collectors are more likely to read.
Okay.
And that's because and that's where I think we've ended up in a position now that a lot of these sort of stories do still appear, but they actually appear in the proper kids newsagent versions of the Batman books or the Spider-Man and Friends type thing.
Yeah.
And that's because if you're a kid, and I mean you're going, I don't really care about 15 years of continuity or who this is or who that is. I want to go, right, I want to read a Spider-Man story or read a Batman story, and let's have Green Arrow in there to do a mix of that, or Spider-Man's interacting with Thor or whatever, without having to go into what is the whole Avengers connection, or where what is the makeup of the Justice League at the moment, God knows. And it's it's a case of I can get in, I can have a bit of fun with it, and just I don't, and okay, something happens that doesn't really make sense in broader continuity, whatever. And I think if you actually went and looked at some of the proper, more kiddie comics that existed, on the supermarket shelves, then this would be there, and you would actually have these sorts of stories happening in that.
I mean,
now I don't think there's no. I think what ties to that is we actually go. there's a good reason why one of the most recent Batman animated series was called Batman the Brave and the Bold,
which comes up first when you Google Brave and the Bold, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And,
and it was for a slightly younger audience than the Batman animated series, but also featured that. I think I've gone, we'll just throw in Weird and Wonderful characters, where it's a storyline,
Miracle and all sorts.
Whatever, Now, part of that is also because the more characters you have, the more toys you can sell. But I also think it is because you can kind of go, we just want to keep it interesting and fresh in terms of who's mixing in with who.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think as well, we forget with the sort of the lengthy storytelling techniques that people use now, let's put it that way, the decompressed storytelling techniques, is there are team-up books, but they're miniseries now. So there was a Spider-Man and Deadpool, there was a Wolverine and Deadpool, there was a Wolverine and Spider-Man. They tend to be little short series because the art of getting in, telling a story and getting out again seems to be lost on the modern generation of writers, and I think this sort of one-off thing, I think writers are afraid these days of using all their ideas up on one issue and they'll have no more left. Bob Haney was clearly just mad for telling stories, wasn't he? Because everything is different.
I also think the words per page has changed.
Yes, I agree, man, totally.
Because reading this versus reading one of the monthly titles that's currently at the moment, the number of words per word balloon is a lot higher in the 1978-79 book than it is today.
Let's talk a little bit. That's a good point for us to talk a little bit about Bob Haney. Born in 1926, and died on the 25th of 11th of November 2004, born in Philadelphia. Very active in DC. Kind of seen as a bit of a sort of wacky guy, I think, especially in relation to his stories. He wrote The Brave and the Bold 4 decades, and is kind of well known, I think, for doing that one. Grew up reading Prince Valiant and Flash Gordon. First published his story was in Black Cat #9, January 1948. So the dude's going back a bit. He'd been in comics for many decades by this point. He started off working across a number of different comic companies, including Fawcett, Hillman, Standard, and some more. But with the arrival of Wortham, let's call it that, it put a pay to a lot of comic companies, and he kind of landed permanently at DC. He wrote. There's a couple of landmark things he wrote. He wrote the first appearance of Sergeant Rock. He created Eclipso in the House of Secrets issue 61 in 1963, and he wrote the first Doom Patrol. He co-created the Teen Titans, so that's something that's still going with Bruno Premiani. And in Brave and Bold number 54, there you go, back in the Brave and Bold, but that was in 1964. Haney and Ramona Fredon created Metamorpho in Brave and Bold 57, so that was a period of great creativity, wasn't it? And him and Howard Purcell created the Enchantress in Strange Adventures 187, which is the character that appeared in the Suicide Squad movie, the first one.
Yeah.
If you remember? Well, kind of, yeah. Often quoted as his best story was with Take a Drink Alex Toth, called Dirty Job, not the sort of thing that we do, in Our Army at War 241. But he kind of became a bit of a sort of... A lot of the accounts I've read sort of describe him as becoming a bit outdated. And he got moved off to animation. I think he ended up working in Thundercats. And there is one interesting fact, which I have only read in one place, and I've had something that compares to it slightly elsewhere, but that he was Chevy Chase is his nephew. I don't know. That's quite interesting. If it's true, that would be brilliant.
As I often say to my team at work, if you say it with enough confidence,
that's become
for somebody to
now,
challenge you on it, right? So
yeah,
he was Chevy Chase, is it nephew? There you go.
Just
genius.
Wrong,
Silent Bob.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about Plastic Man. Are you a fan of Plastic Man?
Yes,
you are. Okay.
Because I think he's a character that. Yes, if he's handled correctly. Right? Okay. And I think you need to kind of go. He's supposed to be a silly character in some ways, but with an underlying bit of a of a good heart, and so there's all things like that. But it should always be come with a degree of silliness. And I think the Kyle Baker storyline set that he did was absolutely spot on, where he just went, you know what, we're just going to make this really fun. and have good things that come with it, but it's just a good, fun character.
Yeah, I think Dean Haspel did some stuff as well, which was pretty fun.
Yeah,
it had that.
Yeah.
It was very Jack Cole. I think a lot of the art in that. Yeah,
and there's Evan Dorkin did one as well.
Oh, okay.
In the Wednesday comics.
Of course. Yeah.
Which is is again.
We need to do a talk about Wednesday comics one day, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a comic. That was a good place.
Did the hardcover there. I'll need a bigger desk.
yeah.
But so that's my problem is when you move him into outright DC continuity, is arguably his power levels are almost would you place him on DC base? Because he can just about do anything, and he can kill anybody quite easily using his powers if you wish to, and you can't kill him because you can shoot him and he doesn't get shot, and who knows, so and you then go, where does he stop and Elongated Man begin in terms of the mix now? So there's a little bit of an issue with that. I also think, I know you've talked about Alex Ross recently and people doing over rendering of characters. When you put him into that sort of ilk, it just looks wrong to me. It needs to be, because it loses that cartoonish.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he's had his phases as being, he was in the Justice League for a while, and then he was in that series from about 6-7 years ago called The Terrifics, if you read that one.
I remember that, yeah.
And I think he's only good enough for a while, to be funny for a while. I'm sure somebody, Tom King or someone, has his, Plastic Man is depressed and now turned evil theories going on. I hope they keep turning those ideas down. Yeah, it just doesn't seem... We need Woozy Winks, don't we? We need all this sort of thing going on with him. Yeah.
That's he has a funny cast that goes with him. And this is my point. It needs to be a little bit of fun. He should be that piece of humour that comes with... put him beside Batman and go, I'm the, I'll be the foil.
Yeah.
But the problem there is, if you put him there, there's other characters you can't put in the mix as well.
Yeah. You can't have the Joker. I'd say the Joker's probably out of bounds if you've got,
You can't put, or he shouldn't be in the same Justice League as the Blue Beetle and Booster Gold.
Yeah.
It's the same, because it's the same type of humour. It's that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But that, so does he work as a character? Very, very much so. He has, a potted history of, which company he's belonged to in some ways.
Yeah.
Going through Quality Comics before going into DC Comics.
Yeah.
And therefore it is that whole, when all these companies start merging into one big company, you've got characters that are quite similar in how you play them all.
Well, that's the nature of DC, isn't it? That's how. I mean, DC is like basically a number of companies all joined together, isn't it? And when you think he came out of Quality, Police Comics #1, August 1941. In fact, funny enough, a friend of the show, Paul Kupperberg, literally just tweeted that Plastic Man was the best comic book feature of the 1940s. Oh, that's interesting. Paul's a man who knows his stuff. I think I first read him in, I'm going to say Adventure Comics, or I possibly had that short-lived solo series of him before that. What about you, man? Can you remember?
Ooh. You know what? I've got absolutely no idea where I first came across him.
Yeah.
The first thing that always comes to my mind is the Kyle Baker series.
Okay,
but
I
would have that's not the first appearance I would have seen of him at all. Again, I suppose there's that interesting thing about, was it him or was it Elongated Man that you saw first? You know what? That's probably stumped me as to what my first crossing over with Plastic Man would be.
I always used to look at him and think, has he got Elvis's glasses on? He's got those sort of weird goggly glasses things on there, which I kind of thought were cool.
But he's in a sort of weird strongman.
Yeah, with like string across the front of it. Yeah, it's very strange, isn't it? But it works with the colours. The colours work brilliantly because they play off against stuff in, for example, dreary Gotham, and you've got that sort of bright redness going on. Yeah.
And again, I always love it when when people play with it of going like, he's hiding in plain sight, and you're looking for that. There's a table in the corner that happens to have the colour scheme, and you go, it's him. Oh, who knew?
You spot it. It's like a Where's Wally thing going on there. Yeah.
Nice thing of it.
Created by Jack Cole, who I noticed earlier, and we were chatting about on the Slack, was born on this very day in 1914. He died on the 13th of August 1958. Sadly, he killed himself by shooting himself. He was known really, for me, I think, for Plastic Man, and then he's also known for some sort of cartoons he did, a number of which are in Playboy. And he used to use the pen name Geo Nagel. An early comics job was for Lev Gleason, publications where he revamped the Golden Age Daredevil, the one that for kids these days will probably recognise of having appeared in Savage Dragon a few years ago. He then created Midnight, a spirit-style character with a monkey assistant. But in the 40s, he pretty much lived and worked at Quality. And he also worked with Will Eisner and assisted on the Spirit. So he sort of learned his skills under Eisner working on that strip. And I think he ghosted quite a few pages for Eisner at the time, which is quite interesting. Later on, he was also known for the newspaper strips Millie and Terry and Betsy and Me. There's a theme going on there. But yeah, absolutely beautiful line work, man. I just love seeing his work. Simon Russell stuck a thing on there. I think the magazine name, is it called Comic Art? He put, oh, have you seen this magazine? And I actually bought it like a month ago in Gosh, and it has a lot of the newspaper strip stuff. You know, some of the illustration stuff in there. It's beautiful, real fluidity of line in his work. You know, which suits obviously his Plastic Man stuff.
Exactly, because you can bend and shape the characters as you see fit.
Yeah. Now this is a funny one, because this is also we've already dealt with Aparo previously with Dame when Damien was on the show, but so I'm not going to specifically talk about Aparo at the moment, but I think it's probably worth mentioning Joe Staton, who I'm an absolute fan of. I love Joe's work. And I know you've got an original from him as well, haven't you?
So yeah, I met him at New York Comic Con in 2008, I think it was. So
yeah, I think yours says NYCC 2008, and mine says NYCC 2009. I don't know. I was looking at them when we sent them to each other earlier. Yeah.
So I've got a shadow which he has dedicated actually to Walter Gibson.
Yes,
which is quite nice. So always nice when you go, you actually properly know who the character is.
Yeah, I think as I understand it, he was. I was chatting to Boland of all people, and they're mates, and that's what he was talking about was pulp stuff with me. And he was talking about how his mate Joe's into it as well. So that's an interesting dynamic.
So it's a weird connection. He's a really interesting artist in terms of the spread of work that he's done, from the full-blown superhero spandex detailed elements through to, and including things like Space 1999 as well, in terms of the sort of detailed stuff, all the way through to being probably one of the biggest Scooby-Doo artists of all time in terms of comics that worked.
Well, that's what mine is. Mine's a Velma. I've got a sketch of Velma.
And he's done some Archie as well, but that's a weird sort of weird mix and balance that comes across from that, and it sounds the same. Normally you would pigeonhole artists and say, oh yes, you're a superhero artist, or you're a cartoony artist, or whatever. But if he's done the full gambit. Yeah.
There's so born in 1948, North Carolina. Like many of the people we've talked about here, he started at Charlton. Charlton seems to be a sort of a spawning ground of a lot of really great artists, and he after working there, he also developed his character E-Man. At that company, E-Man being a character I'm a fan of, and E-Man has appeared at least 5 different companies over the years. After a very brief job at Marvel, where, as I've read, he inked some Gil Kane, believe it or not. Interestingly, now there's 2 artists you wouldn't put together somehow in my head.
No.
Yeah. No. He went to DC and worked on the new JSA comics, which I think is probably where I first noticed him. And worked on some Batman as well, and also had a hand in the creation of Power Girl and Huntress at the time. That's the sort of, I always think of that JSA as the one that comes before All-Star Squadron, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
Yeah, and in that there's a very distinctive style. You can see it's Staton, can't you, to me? Do you think?
Yes. Yeah, and I think the other character I was quite associated with him in terms of having a particular image is Guy Gardner. Because of the way he seems to draw him with a very flat top of the head. I suppose Ken McGuire does it as well, but you can have that view of them. I mean, I think the first real exposure I had to him was the Huntress series that he did, which was the reinvention of the Huntress.
Yeah.
When she had her own title. Again, because it was kind of a sub-back title. When I got back into comics. But yeah, as I say, always, I've fond memories of Guy Gardner Reborn, which was it was miniseries that was again, was it Prestige format?
Oh, okay, yeah, I think you're right, man. Yeah, I remember that.
And that's something again, because it had a proper look about it in terms of the way he put that character together, and he was starting to cross the bounds there, I think, of going to be a little bit more cartoony as well, but it really worked for that character.
Yeah.
So again, that's that weird breadth of that he has.
Yeah, so he did that initial stint at DC, and then he moved over to First Comics from their inception, pretty much. And he worked as their art director over there. He's quite an interesting character. If you do any research into First Comics, he talks about the boom and bust of First Comics and how he watched it, as an art director. When he returned to DC, I actually thought he was considered quite a hot artist at the time. There was a lot of sort of panels, a lot of stuff like Amazing Heroes and Interview and all these sort of things, talking about him, and over here as well in Speakeasy, talking about him being hot because of his work on Green Lantern at the time. And he also then became it's not as it wasn't as noticeable then, but a hot artist will be put on an event book. We saw it with Perez on Crisis and all this sort of Zek on Super. Thinking, what was the fucking thing? Anyway, moving on. And he ended up on Millennium, which is kind of a much forgotten event over at DC. I don't think it's on the app either. I tried to find it on the app. Yeah, it's a funny term to search for on there. It's a lot of stuff comes back.
Well, yeah, because there was
Secret Wars. That's what I was thinking of. Out. My mind's gone. Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. No, the Millennium series was the first major DC crossover after Crisis.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And
it's the Manhunter thing, wasn't it? The sort of continuation from that. Yeah.
It's all right. You know what I mean? It's been a long time since I read it, but I remember, it was that sudden. It was the book where you went, oh yeah, everyone's got somebody hidden in their own title as well, who is a Manhunter in disguise.
Of course, and we got that Manhunter series after that, didn't we? Yeah.
Are you really? So this is a good stuff. That look, I really like him as an artist. He's also just a really nice guy.
He is. He's him and his missus seem to always be at New York, and I always stop and speak to them. And they're all lovely. Yeah. Now, he went from the hotness at DC, and in recent years, he's, like you said, he's done a lot of work on Scooby-Doo. He's done a lot of work on Richie Rich, and he's done Archie's Jughead, and he's even done some Femforce, believe it or not. But to me, and this is kind of me retrospectively examining his previous art career, his work on Dick Tracy is so in line with the tradition of Tracy that I almost feel like it's in a backwards way influenced how I read his previous books. So when I'm reading, like you say, like that Guy Gardner book, or when I'm reading, Green Lantern Corps or something, I'm thinking, this is like the Green Lantern Corps of Dick Tracy. They've all got that sort of distinctive style to them. Like there's that cartoony comic strip thing going on.
I hadn't put the two together, but now you say that, I immediately know what you mean.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? And the one that really gets me for that is the PIs, Mike Mauser and Miss Tree, when he did that series. Over at first, and Mike Mauser is basically a Dick Tracy character, isn't he?
That makes a lot of sense in terms of how and it. Yeah, in retrospect, as I thinking it backwards, though, you're right. It does. I can see. I don't see it in this Brave and the Bold necessarily.
No, I don't at all. That's a good point, man. It shows how powerful Aparo was, isn't it? Yeah,
but you're right in terms of that sort of Guy Gardner book, and that it definitely makes sense how that sort of ties in. Yeah,
cool. Now, we've got some other things to talk about here. We did agree we would talk about this. So we've talked about the story. We've talked about the writer and the artist. We talk about the characters. And now we're going to talk for the first time on this show, and with me and you, we're going to talk about the adverts in this comic, because they're crackers, aren't they? They're so evocative and nostalgic. So I think the biggie for me, let's face it, we're in the season of relentless consumerism now, aren't we? So let's talk about some consumerism in comics when things were slightly more innocent, I think. Inside cover, what a time to be alive. Superman the movie, a full page Superman the movie. which I saw at the pictures where the housemaster of my boarding division took us all to see Superman the movie, and still my favourite Superman movie. Quite Superman 1 and Superman 2, bear in mind they were shot together, weren't they? Still quite possibly my favourite superhero movies ever.
I am very, very proud of you. I really, really thought you were going to open up with the fact that Superman was coming for Christmas.
Yeah, you knew. Oh, thank you. Yeah.
So no, so yeah. But anyway, you're right. You're immediately going. Yeah, this positions this in terms of that whole thing about this is when superheroes were fun.
Yep.
Where it was all about positivity. It was all pulling people together, and I watched the Batman the other week there, and
oh my god,
it's just so depressing and dark. And you're wondering, right? I'm not saying it was a bad movie, and there was some really good acting in it, and I like the interpretation of some of the characters. But this is the Superman. Yeah, I see that advert.
It's like watching fucking Hostel.
But I see this advert for Superman the movie right at the start of this book, and it pushes me back to being a child again.
Yep.
And it makes me go, right, I'm happy. I'm going to be, let's get into this. I'm happy already. And then we move on to, and here's something I miss.
Okay.
And again, it properly dates out. I'm going to take you to page 4 of this comic.
Yeah.
At the very, very bottom of that, when did we stop having the commentary that says, continued on the third page following?
Yeah, I was slightly obsessed with that as a kid, and I don't know why. I just sort of used to think, wow, what? Oh, right. I think it's a good idea because we're seeing these comic strips or comic pages appearing as adverts now, and I'm starting to, oh, hang on a minute, this is a fucking advert. And it's taking me out of the story. So you need something like that at the bottom of the page to say, look, essentially it's saying, okay, there is Wonder Woman in an advert, for Hostess Cupcakes in the next page, but it is an advert,
Yeah. And it wouldn't be the 70s or 80s magazine without a advert for Hostess Cupcakes.
Yeah. Is that Kurt Swan, that page? I know he did quite a few of them, didn't he? I know Bob Rozakis wrote some of them. I'm thinking, is it? I don't know if it is. Don't look like him to me.
No, I don't think it isn't. Nor is it Garcia Lopez. I don't think. It's not
someone like Don Heck inked over, is he, by someone? It's an interesting one. Maybe we'll have to find that one out.
That was an interesting challenge on about saying, look, but it's nice as well because this was the time again where, and again, there's places booking, but Hostess. I never had Hostess Cupcakes.
I've never had
a Twinkie.
Yeah.
I've
had a Twinkie since when I was in America, but decades went by where I didn't have a Twinkie. Yeah.
But you always, it just gives you a great feel when it, and using Wonder Woman to advertise these things. That's a great way of doing it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Now,
and then before,
go on, mate. Sorry.
Yeah, I want to go.
I've got one important question for you. Can I ask you this question? Then we'll move on to that. Now, you see the page of sea monkeys, real life fun pets you grow yourself. Did you ever find the mum in the sea monkeys quite sexy?
I presume this is the same sort of question as did you what was my opinion of Bugs Bunny
when he dressed up as a lady? Yeah. It's only $1.25 and you get this sexy sea monkey lady, allegedly. That's quite cool.
So
what are sea monkeys? Do you know?
They're little shrimps.
Oh right. Okay.
And I only because I did look this up. well, as part of the prep for this. Where it's they end up being little shrimps that basically you can get the dried eggs and the eggs will still hatch.
Right. Okay.
And they're pretty easy to look after. But beyond that, it's the aquatic version of having an ant farm. Yeah,
isn't it? And they all die quite quickly, I'm guessing.
Eventually, then when they've gone, they've gone. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they look nothing like the picture of what they suggest there. They are literally little shrimp type things.
And I'm going to quickly draw your attention to another advert in here. Now, this falls into Tony's adverts for comics I never saw or bought. And it's the Thrilling Adventure, and it's the Scalp Hunter and Jonah Hex comics, which that advert appeared quite a few times. And I remember thinking, he's arm wrestling Abraham Lincoln there. That's cool. Who wins? And I've never still to this day read that comic. I'd like to.
It's weird Western tales featuring Scalp Hunter. No, not a book. I don't remember ever buying or owning.
Yeah,
in terms of it.
It was a bit like Action Comics 500. That was an advert for seemingly donkey's years, and it took me over a decade to actually get that comic because I don't think it made it to my newsagents or something, you know. Yeah,
I thought you were going to take us to the full color poster spectacular.
Oh, that is on my list. That is on my list.
where you can order up your Farrah Fawcett. Actually, it's not Farrah Fawcett, is it? Is she on there?
It's L.A. Farrah. There she
L.A.
is.
Farrah,
I've been
that's
over.
what I call her.
Yeah, you got Linda Carter.
Oh,
I don't know who Miss
Miss
Anton
Linda
is.
Carter.
Yeah. You got who's that on their shoulders? Who's that? I don't know who that is. The Coneheads, who were at the time I think were on Saturday Night Live, but we hadn't seen them because they were in a movie a couple of years later, weren't they? A giant lad, and there is an advert for a who is it? It's Donnie and Marie, who I found just really creepy as a kid. I'll be honest with you, their brother and sister seemed weird.
Yeah. So it's the one I find really weird is the page before that particular advert for the posters, which is one of these pages of comic adverts where it's like, I don't know how many. You know, it's like a listing advert. There's
it's like the one we had in DUI, isn't it? Where you got loads on the page.
There's just loads and loads of little adverts, including your option to order up Velvet Touch life-size dolls.
Of
Elvis and Travolta and whatever. So,
Sean and Danny, they were the Hardy Boys, weren't they?
Is it the Hardy Boys or were the
I think they were the actors who played the Hardy Boys.
Or is it the Dukes of Hazzard?
No, it is the Hardy Boys. Yeah, I remember the Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew was a sort of 2-year series. Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, but it's also, you know, there's options in here to have the Atlas body, to get your comic book. You would send away to get the comic book list of comics that were available
I did
to
that.
buy.
I sent away for them all the time. Sometimes you'd send away to America and never get anything, and then sometimes you would send away to the UK. And I remember having like comic listings. I've still got a few of them here actually that got sent back to me, you know, through the post, and then you ticked off what you wanted and ordered them, posted it back again. Yeah, none of this online nonsense. I used to think, oh my God, comics for sale, 1940s to 1976. What amazing comics could I get? You know.
Yeah.
And there was always the high school diploma one there. It was always seemingly floating about. And they love their rings, don't they? You could always get a high school ring.
Yep.
Some of these comics had a big double-page card insert, didn't they? Which was just pictures of rings, wasn't it?
Yep, that's right.
Yeah.
And then the ability to sell grit newspapers.
yeah.
Which again just takes me back. And this is the thing about picking up comics from America in the 70s. And this is what made comics exotic.
Yeah.
in that sense, you're going, there's things here. No, I don't know what a Slim Jim is.
Yeah.
You know, and this is from another world, and that makes the rest of the comic that exciting and different. I want to be clear about this, and I pointed this out to you a couple of times. Slim Jims, they're all meat, so your mum will probably love them just as much as you will.
Which involves me just
your
saying,
mum love meat. Yes.
Yeah, your mum. That's what they're saying. Yeah. The double page insert I really takes me back as well. So there's it's an advert over 3 pages basically, but the main two comes in the staple, and it's a classic collection of Action Comics 1, which I owned that one. I think my father bought me for it, and I think it's the dude from Dead Universe was telling me that was much sought after because they didn't reprint it for a while. And the other one was kind of a movie magazine, wasn't it? About Superman the movie, which was kind of cool. And then following on from that was kind of like toys you could get in association with the movie and more. But the one that really caught my eye was there was like a Batman utility belt, which was fucking brilliant. Just looked brilliant. And I still to this day have not seen one in real life. Have you?
I haven't, but I can imagine it's cheap plastic that you'd be disappointed when you saw it in real life.
Yeah.
Yeah. But also in the bottom corner there's 3 books, and this is there's a Batman book there that I covet.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's one of the few Batman hardcovers I do not own, and it's Batman from the 30s until the 70s, and it just never comes up.
Right. Okay.
or when it does come up, it's ripped to bits and it still costs 50 quid, and I'm like, no, I'm not paying that money for that. But it's as I say, it's one of the books that I covet.
I wonder if it was distributed over here, because a lot of the stuff wasn't,
Oh no, it wouldn't be. And this is a collection before they did collections.
Yeah, it was. It really was. I mean, did we have the Marvel Origins book at this point? I'm not sure, actually. I'd have to check. I'd have to check. I've got them on the shelf over there, but I'd have to check. But the thing is, what a lot of kids think, oh yeah, all the comics, they were over here. You couldn't get them. But there's a lot of comics that were never distributed in the UK, so we didn't see them. I've got a couple in front of me, actually. I've got Batman Family number 481, which wasn't distributed in the UK. And I've also got, where is it? Detective Comics 488, which wasn't distributed in the UK. So if you wanted to get these issues, you'd have to send away to the US to get them. Sounds mad, but
well, and so the version of The Brave and the Bold that you have, because mine is a UK version. It's 12 pence.
Right. Yeah.
It's and those were the days when they did multiple covers for different parts of the world and put the actual price on for the which actually makes some of these books wanted in the States because it's an alternate cover
the pence version. Yeah.
Which is just odd.
Yeah, and I remember that mine's a 12 pence one, the one that Pete sent me, and I remember the change from 12p to 15p because my maths had worked out how many I could get for 12, in a pound or something, and then when it changed to 15, still to these days I can multiply things by 12 and 15 due to having sort of standing in the newsagents working out how many coins I had in my pocket, Yeah, those were the days. Any other adverts that sort of caught your eye there, Al?
No, listen. There is something I do need to point out that I want to ask you about. On page 5, right? Well, no, we love that version of the Batmobile. It's a very nice one. But see the very, very first word balloon? Is that a typo? Where it says, check, I haven't seen you since we last tangled with Ruby Rider. Do you think that's where Bob Haney's gone to the editor? Can we check that? That was the last time they actually saw each other.
Oh, I see what you mean. I actually think this is right because I was listening to an Earth 2 podcast and they were talking about Ruby Rider, and she's this sort of glamorous tycoon woman who appeared, who hires Batman. Hires Batman? I can't remember. She hires someone. But they did. I think they both did meet with her. But I think you might be right in that he's sort of hedging his bets a bit, isn't he?
Can somebody check that is the last time they met?
Yeah. So when somebody writes into the letters page for Brave and the Bold 150, it says, "Oh, I think you'll find," as comic fans will want to, and then it's the easy get out of jail, isn't it? For who was the editor of this? Paul Levitz, was it? Yeah, Paul Levitz could easily write. Well, it was Batman had forgotten that. That's why he was asking him. You might be right, man. Yeah, that's a good point actually. Yeah.
And what's that? If anyone does get this or goes onto the DC app, can somebody please tell me what the hell's going on page 16?
Oh, right. Why is that?
That's the one where Plastic Man collects all the plastic snowflakes by making his head.
Oh, and it goes through his brain. That one.
Through his brain and out his mouth.
Yeah, I thought that when I was reading it. The other thing I thought is it's convenient that Batman keeps a helicopter in the boot of his car.
Yes. Oh, there's some brilliant bits. I love the snorkel nose as well. There's I'm not going to tell anybody, the listener, about that. If you want to know about the snorkel nose, go read this book.
Go get it, yeah. I love the fact when the goons are all having to put the Christmas decorations back. They're all sweating, aren't they? Like he's working really hard.
And all being made to wear their dad vests.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. Yeah, they're wife beaters, as they call them in the States.
Oh,
yeah.
Dear.
Now, the last thing we're going to talk about here as well is we're going to talk about the Daily Planet, which was kind of used to see it in most comics, DC comics. Not everyone, they didn't all have them, but it was a real staple for me, and I used to love reading it. Now, this is the early version of what later becomes called Direct Currents, and then a number of other things. Paul Kubberg had a hand in writing a lot of this stuff. Direct Currents being the news paragraph in the Daily Planet. But did you want to explain what it was, Al?
Yeah, so it was kind of as you say, it was the internet page before there was an internet.
Yeah.
Where it was, let's give you a little bit of background on what's happening elsewhere in the DC universe. Let's, give you some insight to answer some Q&A that may be there, and talk about things that are coming up, and not just in that sense of going, oh, here's the next issue, or here's some of the issues that are coming out. Ultimately, I think as well, this spawned Direct Currents, which was the standalone glossy comic-sized newspaper thing that they did for it. Yeah. Which always had that, here's the list of the books coming out in the next coming month, but it always had a first couple of pages that were a synopsis of something coming out, or a wee interview with one of the creators. And that's kind of what this is in terms of, it's got this thing about saying, here are some of the stories that are coming up. Here are some questions around saying, do the staff help you answer all the other questions? Or, what do you have planned for Action Comics number 500?
Yeah.
Things like that, where it's people that are going, oh, yeah, we're keeping it up as a very special surprise. It doesn't really get anywhere or tell anything about it. But it gives that chance for the editors just to give some background.
It's that thing that, that Stan is often credited with as starting, is that fan interaction thing, isn't it? That's the sort of thing. It's like, I mean, one of my favourite bits of it was the Ask the Answer Man, which I used to read avidly, and Bob Rozakis is who's also the writer of Amazing Man, as well as a lot of other comic starting stuff, and he had the job of answering a lot of these questions, and I think he relied on E. Nelson Bridwell as well, who had sort of this encyclopedic knowledge of DC, and it started because Bob got a job as a sort of intern, a new employee to index adventure comics and detective comics, and he kind of got this knowledge of it. He later scripted quite a lot of stuff. He scripted Teen Titans, Freedom Fighters, Aquaman, and the Hostess Fruit Pie adverts as well, believe it or not. But I used to read these, and Bob used to kind of frighten me a little bit because he was very short in his answers, wasn't he? There'd always be a question that he clearly thought was just fucking stupid. So there was always a question about, there was a couple of times you saw the question, why is it called DC? And he'd always answer it by saying, as I've said before, try listening. It's almost like that. It comes from Detective Comics. Well,
and in this one, it's, why is the parasite purple?
Yeah.
The answer is, why not?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
You can imagine just one of those editors that moves because it just is.
Yeah, fuck's sake. And also there's always one about, I've got issue 3 of Commandy, how much it's worth. And these poor kids, they've written in thinking they've got this expensive comic because they've heard that comic books are worth some money. And he always just says 30 cents. Something like that. But I loved reading them, And occasionally you used to get a little bit of information out of them, didn't you? Like, for example, what happened to Jimmy Olsen's own magazine? It was incorporated with Lois Lane and Supergirl to create Superman Family. I thought, I'd forgotten that. Yeah, that is where it came from.
Listen, why can't the Kid Flash join the Legion? Well, go read the following titles and you'll see why, type thing. And things like that. It was those sort of little things that were the throwaway stuff. But and there was this. It's great for putting the comic into timepieces where it does talk about what are the other books that are coming up. So this ties in with the 40th anniversary of the Dark Knight. Of the Batman appearing. So therefore, he's Detective number 483 was the 40th anniversary book. I could never have told you that. That's just
me neither, man.
That ties together. Yeah.
I'd buy a book that is just these.
Well, I've still got my collection of the Direct Currents. That I don't have all of them. Sadly.
Right. Okay.
But it's because it was a great, and Comic Book News was the other one that came out about that time in the early 90s.
Yeah.
Where you would get, it was a freebie. It was given away at the comic shop, but it had things in it as well that were interesting and worth noting. Slightly
after, I think Marvel did it in various sort of versions. It stopped for a while, then came back again. But they would do like a little checklist of all the books that are coming out this month, and I would look at it. And so I've got some comics where I've ticked off the ones I've got, and now someone would say to me, "Oh, have you seen, Catwoman versus, the Blue Beetle is on issue 5," and I'll go, "I didn't know there was a Catwoman versus the Blue Beetle, and that was Scooby-Doo." And this is a cracking one. So talking about what we talked about previously, also in this issue, the Human Target turns movie star in the Lights, Camera, ... Murder Contract by Len Wein and Howard Chaykin. There you go.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. I was going to say, we talk about all these things are interconnected. I refer you, and given that this was a randomly chosen book, basically, I refer you to the second letter on the letters page.
Okay, right.
Where I would love to see a 25-pager co-starring the Batman, the Shadow, and the Human Target in number 150.
Yeah.
And it goes on to talk about Denny O'Neil and the Shadow teaming up. And I'm like...
Yeah. Didn't that happen recently? We had a little touch of that, didn't we, recently?
It does, but it was more the fact that, what are the odds that you and I could randomly pick a Brave and the Bold that actually mentions the Shadow?
Yeah, we're living in the Matrix. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's cracking, isn't it?
Oh, dear.
No, I enjoyed this, man. I like this sort of thing. I like reading this. I do really like you say, picking up odd Brave and Bolds, Marvel 2-in-1s, and stuff like that I haven't seen before. And it always surprises you. There's occasionally it'll just be, Superman and Green Arrow, this sort of thing. And then occasionally you'll get something strange. And I think the last issue of Brave and Bold was one of my favourites, which was Batman and Batman, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Issue 200, which I remember has been quite a classic story of the two Earths, wasn't it, back then?
Multiple Earths, so therefore you could have that crossover of how the two of them would interact with each other.
Yeah, really.
They kind of built up to that as well, the other issues just before the 200 stuff. And why did it stop? Because they started Batman and the Outsiders.
Yeah, I've heard conflicting stories. One saying the sales weren't up, and then the other one saying they wanted to move Batman into this team book. But to me, Brave and Bold did become Batman and the Outsiders. I just stopped buying Brave and Bold and picked up the Outsiders naturally. Which Batman eventually left. But I mean, that was a couple of years down the line, I'm going to say. Yeah.
It was the plethora of books, wasn't it?
I think it's because Aparo was on it as well. I think it's kind of a sort of the successor. It was a cracking little book. I read the Christmas issue of that just a few days ago for the ACP Christmas episode, and Geo-Force versus Superman was a great issue. Have you bought the hardback omnibus of this? Have you?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. So I've got the hardback, all those collections of I think there's 3 of them now for the Brave and the Bolds.
Ah, right. I was waiting for them to hit the soft cover. I think because sometimes they put them out in softback, don't they? More cheaper.
I mean, it seems slightly recut. Reading this was great nostalgia for me.
Yeah.
In terms of the touch and feel of it, and seeing the adverts and actually, and it being a comic that was quite silliness.
Yeah.
I do need to make a big call out to Mark Champion, wherever you are.
Yeah.
Because Mark owned this book, presumably in 1978, 1979, and signed his name at the top of the inside first page. And you look, based on the signature, I'm going to suggest he was about 8 or 9 at the time, which would have been
all from Croydon,
prime for reading this, and it just would have been, amazing for him. So wherever you are, Mark, I hope you enjoyed this book as much at the time as I've enjoyed rereading it now.
The things we used to do to comics, man. I had a period as a kid where I decided to cut out the corner boxes on my comics and save them separately in a book. So I've got all these comics from like 74, 75 where I've cut the corner boxes out. The shame. I just feel shame over it now.
Well, no.
I know.
It's supposed to be a disposable medium.
Exactly. I wish it still was, man. I wish it still was. Yeah.
And that's where I'm saying that the equivalent for this book now is is actually the book you're finding in the supermarket.
Yeah.
Where it's half toy adverts and all this sort of stuff, and comes with a plastic thing stuck to the front of it. But that's what and possibly for a slightly younger age group than this Brave the Bold. But that's the replacement now.
And often the art style can be like the Brave and the Bold cartoon, I find, for a lot of that stuff that they're doing
at the moment.
Kids. Yeah, man. Agreed. Good stuff. Thanks for that. That was a fun one. We'll knuckle down and do some big subject again in the new year, I'm sure. But
something deep. Oh dear.
Oh my god. Here comes the Mad Magazine one again. But that was a fun one. So over to you, man. What you got planned? There's a dearth of cons in the new year, is there? I'm not seeing many coming up. You got anything going on?
So next year is I'm taking a fallow year.
Right. Okay.
I've kind of decided that's where I am. I need to recharge some of the batteries, so there's nothing for me at all in the first half of the year in terms of cons or anything like that. I literally am sitting it out, or I will not be behind the table.
Right.
I might go to certain few cons and be in front of the table. I'm also a little bit scunnered, it's a good Scottish word, of the of Comic Cons, and it's a debate for another time about the price of a table at a Comic Con versus the price of the equivalent table at other events.
Okay.
Having done some craft fairs and things, where the price of the table is a lot less, and I mean a lot less.
Right.
But you're like going, it's the same hall and setup, and if this was a Comic Con, you'd be charging me £90 instead of £20.
Yeah. And free
so
entry, I'm guessing, at some of those craft fairs, is there? Or
yeah. And it's there's me I'm just a bit taken aback by that for the time. So I'm going to take some time out from that side of things. At some point in time, I need to get my finger out and work out to write a script for something for DUI 3.
Oh yeah, I'm about to do that. I'm writing something for Simon's thing as well tomorrow. Simon Russell's thing. So got that to do as well. Have you done one for that?
No.
Okay.
No, I need to think about what I would.
Yeah.
Anyway, people who don't know what that is need to go and read the Slack.
Exactly.
But no, so I need to do something for DUI 3. I've got a couple of ideas there, and I need to work. One of them, actually, I've got an artist in mind, but I need to speak to them because it's more. I think it could be I think the idea is something that they would want to build on as well. So
interesting.
Need to go with that. So that's kind of me, and but in the interim, the Penguin will slowly plod along. Yeah. I'm not producing them at the same speed as I was, so I'm just putting some of the old strips up in rotation.
Okay.
And
it's allowed.
It's Christmas at the moment, so it's what would it be without repeats?
Very true.
That's where we are.
Yeah. Oh, good stuff, man. I don't think I'm at anything other than Angoulême for a while now, so I'm going to Angoulême for No Brow, so I'm doing a bit of that and having a wander around there. That should be a chuckle. That'll be my second visit there, so I'm really looking forward to that, man. Have you? I can't remember whether you'd done it or not before.
No, never managed to get to it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are put off by everyone says, "Oh, you'll never get anywhere to stay," but you do with the advent of Airbnb. People make the most of that in that town. I can tell you that now. You'll find somewhere. So I'm looking forward to that. I've met up with Rachel Ball around the next comic with her, so I'm looking forward to that as well. Just trundling on with Falpy's just texted me, so we've got the Tribute Press Christmas lunch next Tuesday, which is just me and him.
I got my Tribute Press Christmas card.
You texted me saying you're not allowed to put it up in the living room.
You can go in my office, but not in the living room.
Oh, congratulations to Daryl, because he and his good lady have had another child. Congratulations to him. Otherwise, he'd be at the curry as well. Just a quiet Christmas. Maybe suck it and see with the new year, man. I booked my Baltimore tickets. I'm going to do that, but that's not till October. See what happens.
You had me starting to investigate Baltimore again as well.
Well, the VIP pass ain't expensive for that.
It's not, and the VIP pass really is not expensive when you actually work out what you get with it as well.
You get in early as well, which is good.
Yeah. So, and I think it's just like an extra $100 to get the VIP pass.
Yeah, that's right.
But by the time you go, you get the yearbook, which is a $20 book.
Oh, okay.
You get a T-shirt, which is a $20 T-shirt type thing.
Yeah.
You get. You maybe get a print or something where you're going to go, I don't necessarily want it, but it's a $20 print. So suddenly you're like going, well, I'm getting $60, $70, $80 worth of things.
Yeah,
for, and I'm getting it, so the price of getting in early is just $20.
Yeah, it's worth it, isn't it?
So no, I highly recommend, they know what they're doing.
I agree. I'm looking forward to that one. No, I've never been to Baltimore, so I'm looking forward to that. See what happens.
Don't watch The Wire before you go.
No, I think I'll be all right. Yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah, apparently it's in quite a nice little part of the town, isn't it? I think
it is.
Yeah. Cool. On that, man. Yeah, I think with Troops taking a couple of years off, that's not about. I don't know. Don't know what the next one is. I'm not going to do MCM. It's a few. I mean, Bath is fine. Simon Russell, who we're going to get on to chat in a couple of episodes' time, just about the way he's running the table at the comics fair in Brighton was good. I think to have that free to entry and open table for any comic creators who want to leave their comic, he'll sell them for you. That's a great little idea. I really like that. I think that's the way forward. Enough of this corporate shit, you know. Good stuff, man.
There's no money in comics.
Nah, fuck all. as is proven in various like clickbait sites this week. Off panel, I think, had a couple of mentions of it with Heidi McDonald as well this week. But yeah, good stuff. So where can we find you online, man?
Just search for @Penguin on any form of social media.
Good stuff, man. You can find me at neverownanything.com. Thanks for listening. Thanks for the recent reviews as well, and thanks for the kind words on the last few episodes. I'm going to say goodbye to you, dear listener, now, and Al and I are going to have a chat about our next subject. Thanks, dude.